My name's Daniel. I'm 42. Been married to Melissa for 15 years. We met in college. The kind of story that felt like it could have been written for a movie. Two kids who promised they'd always choose each other, no matter what life threw at them. But life has a way of testing promises you once believed were unbreakable. Over the years, we drifted. Not all at once, just a little bit at a time. Late nights at work turned into separate dinners, separate TV shows, and eventually separate bedrooms. I told myself it was just a phase, that every marriage hits rough patches. You don't give up on someone you love because things get quiet. Until one night, the quiet turned into something else entirely. I was sitting at the edge of our bed, scrolling through old photos, us on the pier, us laughing over cheap wine, her head resting on my shoulder like she belonged there. Melissa walked in, her hair tied back, face blank. No makeup, no smile, no warmth. "Daniel," she said flatly, "we need to talk." Those 4 words never lead anywhere good. I set the phone down. "What's wrong?" She crossed her arms. "I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it. I have no desire to be close. Not physically. Not emotionally, I just don't feel it anymore." For a second I thought I hadn't heard her right. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. I waited for her to soften it, to take it back, to say she was tired or confused, but she didn't. "Melissa," I said quietly, "you're talking like we're strangers," she sighed, looking past me as if I wasn't even in the room. "Maybe we are. There are moments when silence feels like a scream. That was one of them." I nodded slowly, not because I accepted it, but because I didn't trust my voice enough to speak. The woman who once couldn't fall asleep without my arm around her was now telling me she didn't even want to be touched. Something inside me broke, but it didn't shatter. It just stopped. I stood up, walked past her, and she didn't move. Didn't ask where I was going. Didn't care. I grabbed my keys, stepped outside, and sat in the truck for 10 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the dark street ahead. That's when it hit me. She hadn't said she couldn't be close. She'd said she didn't want to. There's a difference. One means there's a problem to fix. The other means you're no longer wanted. I drove to a diner on the edge of town, one we used to go to when we were broke newlyweds. The waitress still remembered me. She asked, "Melissa not with you tonight?" And I just shook my head. For the first time in years, I ate alone without even pretending to text someone to look busy. It felt strangely peaceful, like the noise in my head had finally gone quiet. When I got home, the lights were off. She was asleep or pretending to be. I lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling until morning. The next day, her friend Claire stopped by. She'd been close to both of us for years, the kind of friend who'd seen every side of our marriage. She walked into the living room, took one look at me, and said softly, "You look like you haven't slept." I laughed dryly. "I didn't," she hesitated. "Melissa told me what happened." "Of course she did," I said. "Let me guess, she's the victim in her story?" Claire didn't answer right away. She just stood there, fidgeting with her keys. "She's confused. She says she needs space." "Space?" I repeated. "How much more space can she need? We're already living like roommates." Claire looked at me, her expression soft but serious. "Maybe she just doesn't realize what she's throwing away." I didn't respond. I didn't have the energy to. Later that evening, I told Melissa I was going to stay at my brother's for a few days. She barely blinked. "Do what you need to do," she said. No argument, no concern. I grabbed a bag, walked out, and as I reached the door, I heard Claire's voice from behind me. Low, hesitant. "Hey, wait. I need to tell you something." I turned around slowly, still holding the doorknob. Claire stood there, her eyes flicking toward the hallway where Melissa had gone. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated. "Maybe I shouldn't." "Then don't," I said. I was tired of half-truths and polite silence, but she took a breath and stepped closer. "Daniel," she said quietly, "I think you deserve to know what's really going on." I didn't speak. I just waited. "She's been talking to someone," Claire continued. "Nothing's physical, at least not yet, but it's emotional. She's been distant for months because she's already halfway out of the marriage in her head." For a moment, everything around me blurred. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding like a slow drum in my ears. "Who?" I asked. Claire shook her head. "It's someone from her office. A guy named Ryan. They've been meeting after work. Coffee, dinners, long drives. She told me it wasn't cheating because she hadn't crossed that line. But you and I both know that line disappeared the moment she stopped choosing you. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. Claire looked down. I probably shouldn't have told you this, but I couldn't just stand by. You're a good man, Daniel. You don't deserve this. I nodded once. Not out of gratitude, just acknowledgement. I walked past her out the door into the cool evening air. Driving didn't clear my head. It only made the silence louder. I ended up at the lake, the one where Melissa and I used to sit on summer nights talking about how we'd grow old together. I sat on the bench staring at the still water and tried to figure out when exactly we stopped being us. Was it the first time she said I'm tired instead of good night? Was it the day I stopped trying to fix things because she made it clear she didn't want them fixed? Or was it tonight when she told me she had no desire to be close? Maybe love doesn't die in one moment. Maybe it just fades so slowly you don't notice until you wake up next to a stranger. I didn't sleep that night either. I thought about every conversation we'd avoided, every apology that never came, every chance I gave her to meet me halfway. The next morning, Melissa called. You left your laptop here, she said. Her tone was casual, like she was talking to a neighbor. Not her husband. I'll pick it up later, I replied. Fine, she said and hung up. When I got there, she wasn't home, but Claire was. She opened the door looking uneasy. She's out, she said softly. I thought you might come by. Yeah, I said, just grabbing my stuff. As I walked through the living room, I noticed Melissa's phone on the counter. The screen lit up. Ryan, I didn't touch it. I didn't need to, Claire watched me. You're handling this better than I expected. I'm not handling it, I said. I'm just done pretending. She nodded slowly. You're doing the right thing, Daniel. I turned to her. You knew about them before last night, didn't you? Her eyes flickered. I suspected. I didn't want to believe it. Neither did I. There was a long silence between us, the kind that carries too many words that don't need to be spoken. When I left, I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just walked out with my bag and the kind of calm that only comes when the pain has burned itself out. 2 weeks passed before Melissa finally called again. I think we should talk, she said. Met her at the same diner where I'd gone that night. She looked smaller somehow, tired, hollow. She said, I made a mistake. I thought I wanted freedom. I just wanted attention. I looked at her for a long time before answering. Melissa, you didn't lose me last week. You lost me the night you stopped caring whether I stayed. Her eyes filled with tears. Is there any chance we can fix this? I shook my head gently. You said you had no desire to be close. You meant it, and now I finally understand what that feels like. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. I'm not angry, I said. I just can't build a future with someone who already rehearsed life without me. She cried quietly as I stood up to leave. Outside, the air felt cleaner. The sky had that soft gray light just before evening. Peaceful, not sad. I walked to my truck, opened the door, and took one last look through the diner window. She was staring down at the table, her hands clasped together like she was praying for a version of us that no longer existed. I started the engine and smiled faintly to myself, not because I was happy, but because I was finally free. Sometimes love doesn't end in betrayal or hatred. Sometimes it ends in understanding. And understanding, I've learned, can be the quietest kind of goodbye.